Okay, perfect. And thanks for reminding me, Sarah, about the recording. It's always better to start recording at the beginning of the meeting instead of halfway through. Let's see. Richard, you sound kind of like you're from Star Wars with the audio. You want to try talking once more to see if the audio is cleared up? It might. Maybe it's just my end. Is it just my end, or does Richard sound like a robot to the rest of y'all?
No,
Richard, that's amazing. We have a voice changer recorder thing.
Sounds like you're. Richard, your voice is super deep and slow-mo. It like kind of like a robot villain, honestly. It's pretty epic. All right. Let's see here. Just checking the chats. Okay, Jennifer's checking the weather alarm. I just heard some pretty serious thunder out there. So for anyone here in Henry County, it looks like there is some weather moving in, some rougher weather. So with Sonia not being able to make it, we'll make sure we send her a link of the recorded meeting. I'm sure Dr. Walton will either watch the recorded meeting if she's not able to pop in later today, but that's going. So we're all set there. So I think we can go ahead and get started, everybody. I believe everyone knows, but my name is Kimball Hildreth, and then we've got Dane Hildreth and James McWilliam, Jimmy on the call. We've really been looking forward to the computer science PD with all of you from Henry County. Thank you all for making the time to be here today. We're excited about what we're going to be covering as a group, and we're eager to learn some from you all as to how CS has been working for Henry County teachers over the last few years and how we can better tailor the next 3 PD sessions for what's going to be most beneficial for you, the classes you're teaching, and the students that you all have been working with thus far. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can dive into just the virtual slide deck. Let's see here. Okay, there we go. That's the one I needed. Thank y'all for bearing with me. Okay, can everybody see my screen all right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So let's see here. Let's see here. It's almost been 3 to 4 months. We've been running the computer science pilot with Batavia and Maxine, and we've had a fabulous time working with them with a number of the coding projects and then the online curriculum that they've been running through with their students. And we've really gotten to know them better, as well as Carrie Edwards and Dr. Walton. And it's been a great journey working with Henry County in the capacity of computer science education. And we're thrilled to be doing this PD here with you all here at the end of spring. The goal is to have 3 more sessions, each approximately an hour and a half long, through the rest of May and then June 1st. And if we need any auxiliary sessions afterwards, we can absolutely schedule them as needed. And we're looking towards supporting Henry County this fall with computer science curriculum as well. But just to rein it in to the CS PD efforts of today, we really thought that it would be best for us to just review the agenda and then kick off with some introductions. Just to make sure that everyone's met everybody. I know we might have a new face or two with Jimmy being on the call, but just to take a look at the agenda together, we're aiming for today to be roughly an hour and 20 minutes to an hour and 30 minutes tops, and keep that same cadence for the next 3 meetings with our PD in May and then the 1st of June. So we'll kick off with intros today. Then we've got a handful of questions just to discuss as a group with you all as computer science teachers in Henry County, so that Dane, Jimmy and myself can better understand the worlds of the rest of you all outside of Batavia and Maxine, who we haven't been interacting with yet over the course of the pilot. So that information will just be, recorded on our call. That'll be some great survey info for us to have as we work to tailor the rest of the PD information. Jimmy, Dane, and myself will share a little bit about our backgrounds in computer science, where we've applied our efforts, where we've worked to study CS topics as it pertains to our careers, and how that can apply to the students that we're all working to help equip with digital literacy skills and computer science skills. After the background information, we'll dive into the Live Oak CS 101. That's really the meat and potatoes of today's PD. So we'll be looking at the project that we'll be working on as a group in more of a hands-on capacity over the course of the PD, in addition to the Live Oak portal that Batavia and Maxine are familiar with at this point. And we'll be talking about the methodology that we've been developing for students based off of all the experiences that have benefited us in our careers in computer science. After that, we'll talk a little bit about the future of computer science and how that pertains to education in particular, just working to equip students and ourselves as professionals with the skills needed to continue to thrive in a world where more and more tools continue to automate the tasks we do, and it can be easier to disconnect from the human side of work and play with all of these digital interfaces and mediums. And there's Dr. Walton. The next 3 sessions, we will be looking at more coding projects, the economics of computer science, ethics within computer science, and then well-being. Dr. Walton, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I couldn't get in at first, so.
Oh, well, I'm sorry you couldn't get in. I'm glad you're here now.
Problem. I think I got in too early, maybe.
Oh, okay. Well, we've been recording the meeting, so the first few minutes that you might not have caught will be in the recording, and I'll get that posted for everybody just as soon as this first session is over.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And finally, we'll end up with just a Q&A, and that'll wrap up our first PD session. So I'm going to stop the share for the time being, and we'll dive back into that momentarily. But I'd love to hand things over to Dr. Walton just to kick off our introductions, just taking a minute, maybe 2, just to share your name, just so that everyone from the Live Oak team can get to know everyone in the Henry County teacher team a little bit better. And then our team will wrap up introductions. So Dr. Walton, if you want to kick us off and then just pass the hot potato, I think we can keep those introductions moving so that our team has a better idea of who everybody is.
Hello, I'm Dr. Walton, and I am the lead pathway instructor for the programming department. And so the lovely team that you see before you, we all teach computer science and programming courses, such as Intro to Digital Technology, Computer Science Principles, or AP Computer Science Principles, and a Programming Games Apps and Society course. We've played around with Unity, maybe some HTML, some block-based programs such as Scratch, mobile app development. So we've just been using different curriculum and different pieces to try to make a cohesive curriculum. And I've been teaching for at this county, I think it's my 4th year. And I'll pass the hot potato to Batavia Sumlin since she worked with you and is doing the pilot.
Thanks, Dr. Walton.
You would pass it to me now, wouldn't you? I'm Batavia Sumlin. I have worked with you guys since really thinking about it, a year before we actually got you on officially. I teach at Stockbridge, and pretty much just piggybacking on what Dr. Walton said, we've done everything from HTML, CSS, all the way to some of my kids doing Python. I told y'all how I feel about Java. I still don't like it, and I'm trying to, but it's not computing in my brain. But I am grateful that you guys are working with the rest of the team so that they can see what we've learned, what Maxine and I have learned over the past 3 months, and getting this this pilot and curriculum and stuff off the ground. And I just hope that the rest of you guys, once you see it and actually get to getting into the actual portal itself, that you like the changes and things that they've made based off of Maxine and I's suggestions. Which I thought about something the other day, but I'm going to email that to you guys later that I thought about. I was like, oh, that would be a great feature. So
Sounds good.
all right, I am going to pass it to Maxine because she's the next person on my screen.
Okay, I'm Maxine Marsh at McDonough High School. I teach the same thing as everybody else. And I have been working with Live Oaks since January. It has been great. The support is wonderful. Whenever you have a problem, you can just ask, just put it in the chat, and you'll get an answer right away. So that is so important, to have good customer service, as it were. So that's where we are right now. And I'm hoping to learn some more so that we can progress some more with this program.
Well, thanks for the kind words, Maxine. We love it whenever we see Maxine in the chat box. Our team has a daily instant messenger that pops up. That's how we communicate. And if Maxine or Batavia have a problem, they just say hello. And our engineers, even though they've never met Maxine in person or over Zoom, they got to know Maxine and Batavia over the semester just from the chats. So it's we're thankful for the technology we get to work with. Even in this remote COVID world, it really helps us stay connected.
All right, Sarah.
I'm Sarah Franklin. I teach at Union Grove High School. I'm supposed to tell what I teach. Intro to digital technology, computer science, and programming, games, apps, and society. I'm the department chair here also. So if you see me talking, it's because everybody's coming in to tell me like we're out of gas in the county because, they're all freaking out. But anyway, that's who's coming and going. So,
Okay.
But I'm good. This is my 20th year teaching, 21. I don't remember. It's 20 something. I'm old. There we go. And Richard, we'll go with Richard.
Thanks, Sarah. Richard, you might have to type yours out, and I can read it to everyone if you type it. We might pass the buck while you're typing a mini bio for the rest of us. Richard, who do you want to pass the potato to? You want to pass off to Jennifer?
I think I'm the only one left.
Okay, perfect, Jennifer.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I'm Jen Clark. I teach at the Academy of Advanced Studies. This is my first year in Henry County. This is my second year teaching. Let's see, what do I teach? Intro to game design.
Everything. She teaches everything.
Programming, games, apps, and society, computer science, game design and animation, cybersecurity, networking. Did I miss anything about Octavia?
No, I think you got them all.
I feel like I got them all.
Yeah, I think you got them all.
Okay, there.
Perfect. That sounds great. And do you prefer Jen? Okay.
Jennifer makes me feel like I'm in trouble and about this day.
Jen, it is. Thanks for letting us know. All right. Well, I believe that's everybody from Henry County schools. And let's see, Richard here. I teach all 3 classes plus AP. Perfect. And Richard, I'm sure on the next meeting, the voice thing will be better so we can actually talk back and forth more. All right. Well, Jimmy, if you want to take it from there, and then Dane, and then I'll wrap it up.
Hey, y'all. So I've had the privilege to lead the engineering team at Live Oak for the last year and change, I guess. I've been I was just curious. I looked at my resume. So it turns out I've been in the software industry since 2007. So I guess I'm old too. But I have had the opportunity to work in the quality engineering side of things, front end, back end, cybersecurity, email marketing, healthcare, and now I get to be a part of Live Oak. So um, my language of choice is typically Ruby, but I've been in the Microsoft C# realm as well, and Elixir and Erlang for those of you that love the phone companies. So that's my bio. If there are no questions, then I'll pass it off to Dean.
Thanks, Jimmy. So my name is Dane. Let's see, I got into computer science when I was in college. Initially, I went to school to be a doctor. And then as I kept looking into different fields that I was interested in, I found out that computer science intersected all of them. So I went for that. And I graduated from the University of Georgia with my degree in computer science a number of years ago. And I worked for a while with a company called Digication. They're a ed tech solutions and e-portfolio providing company that's located out on the West Coast. And after I left that, I had the opportunity to start working here with Live Oak CS, building computer science curriculum for students here in Georgia. And when I was in college, I had the opportunity to build curriculum for the Clark County school system and work with middle and high school students on their computer science education at a number of schools, and I loved it. And so my career so far in computer science as a software engineer has been centered around the educational side of computer science, and I love it. I love what I do. Love getting to work with the students, working with teachers, and then currently I work as the director of curriculum for Live Oak CS, and I build lots of different types of projects for students to work through. And I think, just to piggyback off of what Jimmy said, if I had a language of choice, I really do enjoy working with JavaScript. I also love working with PHP and Angular, and any of the JavaScript based languages are actually a lot of fun. But if it's middleware, it's PHP. So enjoy being a software engineer, enjoy even more being an educator. And so with that said, I'm going to hand things off to Kimball.
Thanks, Dane. I studied computer science at Georgia Tech, but I really got into it when I was in middle school and high school. Dane and I actually had a little bluegrass band. Being from the South, I guess that's what you do. You play guitar and banjos. And that's what we did when we were little. We thought that was fun. And it was a blast. We played around the state, and we had a little band. And one of the fathers who owned a business locally, he purchased some web hosting space. I was probably 13 or 14. And he bought us a domain. And he said, "Here, Kimball, I bought you some space on a server. See if you can't figure out how to build a website." And my grandfather had a book on HTML, and he'd been enjoying that. So I was blessed to have people in my life that were pointing me towards computers to some extent. And I learned in middle school and high school that I could build websites for other people and I could make money doing it. That's how I paid for my first computer and camera, and eventually a car. And once I got to college, I thought about aerospace engineering, but the computer science department seemed like they were having so much fun. I wanted to continue working in that vein. So I studied computer science at Georgia Tech, and then I obtained my first co-op opportunity building software for Home Depot. I worked up in Smyrna for a few years as a co-op and intern, building digital tools, applications that all 2,000 Home Depot stores would use to organize the products they sell. I absolutely loved it. I worked with a really great team up there, and then I ended up getting a full-time job after graduating, building software for Home Depot and other big box retail stores. So Whole Foods and Ross, Home Depot, TJ Maxx. We built logistical systems for all these stores, and I learned so much working as a developer. And I was able to make a good income coming out of college. I was able to continue learning lots on the job. And I just love that opportunity that was afforded in the tech sector. And I could stay here in Georgia, here in Atlanta, working on those projects. And to Dane's point, computer science truly does touch so many disciplines. Nowadays, it's touching everything. I don't think any job is going to be unaffected by computer science or computing and digital literacy. So I really enjoyed that aspect of the beginning of my career, building software. Ultimately, though, if I had to pick a favorite language, it's probably going to be English. I love coding, I really do. But at the end of the day, I like working with people, and I guess I prefer meetings and design. I like both, but I wanted to get more into the business side of things. So I started working in more of the product design aspect. And then we had the opportunity to start the Live Oak company a few years ago. It budded off of a software company we started. Richard, the only job I found that doesn't use CS is fur trapper. Not in high demand today. That's fabulous, Richard. Yeah, I haven't had any fur trapping opportunities pop up here in Georgia. I think most of the fur has been trapped. But about, let's see, 3 years ago, we started our software company down here in McDonough. And we were building similar software to what I built in Home Depot. Lots of project management systems. There's a lot of demand for that for medium to larger companies. And then that led to us forming Live Oak Computer Science to try to pass on these skill sets to others. We'll dive into more of that history in a little bit. But what I'm going to do for now is go ahead and just reshare my screen. And just wrapping up my bio. It's been a fabulous time working with our team, building project management software, and then starting to build curriculum. And over the last 2 years, really building out Live Oak into a more robust program to help students and teachers all across the state. So computing is something that's always fascinated me. And the human element to that is what I find most fascinating, how computers and humans work together. But let's see here. Does anyone have any questions around just Dane's background, Jimmy's background, or my background, and how that connects to us wanting to help the next generation of students and teachers with computer science skills and digital literacy skills? All right. If there are no questions now, we'll go ahead and review a handful of questions that Dane and I and Jimmy had prepped just to allow us to better facilitate the entire PD experience. So we don't have to have everyone answer these, but if any of these questions speak to you, and if you feel like you've got something that would be great for Dane, Jimmy, and I to know as we're launching off into this PD series with everybody, we would love to hear feedback from these specific questions. So, okay, perfect. So Sarah, you can take it away.
So the background, I began teaching computer science classes. Well, Rodney Bowler put me teaching this area. I initially was a math major in college, and when I was switching schools, they weren't going to take my Calc 3 grade. It was an A. I don't understand, but transfer credits. Anyway, my whole family on my dad's side are computer programmers, so I was like, I'll do that business thing. And I'd already had some classes, and I kind of sort of knew, but then I ended up liking it. So when we switched years ago to just straight up programming, that's my love. I like the design. I loved a class called digital design back in the day. I love that part of it too, but I also like hardcore programming. I'm weird. So my background, I kind of had an idea or an inkling about it just because of my dad and my stepmom. My two of my brothers, that's all they do. And so I've kind of been exposed to that. I was, I got a computer when they first came out, like a Commodore 64. I'm really old, way back in the day. And we were kind of spoiled in that sense because my dad had it. He gave me one, so
Right.
I kind of knew what to do that way as far as, and then we had, we still considered a business teacher. until a couple of years ago, they said we had to go get the computer science class. But the language was Visual Basic that they taught in college at Georgia Southern, though. That's the one I took. I still have my floppy disk with all of my stuff saved on it. Again, my age is showing. I think they're cool to look at, and I used to love to rip them apart when they stopped working.
Uh-huh.
Computer science, I don't know if it's changed the way I view technology. I just look at it and go, man, that took a lot of effort to make that happen, kind of a thing. Sometimes I am envious of people that don't really that don't teach what we teach, because their content doesn't really change a whole heck of a lot. And they just get to use stuff from years ago and maybe put a new spin on it or add some technology. But we're constantly having to learn new things, and something that worked last year has already evolved and changed again.
Right.
I guess it's a good and a bad thing. Am I supposed to go on to the other part too?
If you see questions that you want to tackle, Sarah, absolutely. This might be a good opportunity for us to structure this a bit more. Does anyone else want to share background? It might make sense if, Sarah, if you have other ones that you see that you want to jump on here, if you want to go through these three and then we can hand it off to someone else, then that sounds like a perfect format.
Okay. I already talked about the classes that I teach in Henry County. I mean, I feel like I'm competent, but there's always room for improvement. I'm not going to go out there and just code my own thing, because that's not my interest. I like watching the students have that aha moment where they figure it out, or you give them a little bit and they kind of take it and run with it.
Right.
The Python, it's not been hard. I like Java. I like C#, but I'm weird. I'm one of the weird people in this group. JavaScript, it's okay. I mean, I like HTML coding. I like that kind of stuff, but that's just the type of stuff I do. I feel pretty confident in HTML and CSS. I'm actually going back over in all of my classes right now. We're doing a CARS website that they've got to create just to get that review before the exams. I do enjoy tools like Scratch. I feel like sometimes for our lower level learners, because there's such variation that you can put it to a kid that struggles with spelling, or, their processing skills aren't there, but they can drag and drop something and say, oh my gosh, I just made that happen. And then you've got another kid that can take it to the extreme. So that's my rationale for that. So I feel like it works. You can kind of build a project and still have it multifaceted for all people. I have a lot of students that want to go into technology. I also have a lot of students that come in thinking that they're going to go make video games, but it's only because they play video games. And I try to tell them there's a big difference there.
Right.
And I usually lose some people that go, this is not the class I thought it was, just because they thought they were just playing games. So we got to do the work. Yes, I keep pushing everybody that, again, and we were talking about car prices. A car from 2003 costs a whole lot less for the same car now, but it's all because of the computer chips that are in it and all of the technology. It costs a lot of money for that. I believe that some of them do understand the difference, but I also feel like students are very naive and they need to be more literate in the technology. I just feel like some of them think they know what something is, but they really don't. And they also don't understand the consequences for their actions, not just social media, but a lot of stuff that's out there. They think, oh, it's really gone. Well, no, it's not. So that's my stand in a nutshell.
That's all perfect, Sarah. That's exactly what we're looking for. And we want to just take your answers and everyone else's to fine tune what we're doing. So thank you for all that detail.
Sure.
That's fabulous. Have any of these questions jumped out to anyone else who might like to, just chime in with their own
I'll
answer?
piggyback off of what Sarah was saying with Scratch. I actually taught that as my programming platform for my Intro to Digital Tech kids, because I had them all over the board. Like, some of them were just kind of stuck in my class because there was nothing else available. They had zero interest. But what I found was the kids that had me for Intro to Digital Tech, they had more of a programming mindset just from using Scratch when they came into my computer science class, which I teach them Python there. But I could say, hey, remember when we did the loop where you had to type in the number? And they're like, oh yeah. I'm like, that's a for loop. That's what I'm talking about. And you could see like light bulbs going off, like they understand the pictures and the blocks. And so I can go, same thing. And they're like, oh yeah, I got this. And they're no longer worried about the concept of programming, but now they're just worried about the syntax of it. How do they get to that? Like, then it's just about, did you forget the colon? Did you invert your letters? But they understand the concepts and they can really hone in on how to do it and not what they're doing.
Right.
So for me, that's a big thing.
That's
I
great
tell
to
them
hear.
it gives them their programming brain.
Yes, exactly. And the students today are fortunate to have Scratch, because I know when myself and others were learning these concepts in college, you got to learn them within a few months if you don't have prior coding experience. And to build those mental images, that takes a whole lot to cram all that in a few months when you don't have something like Scratch to visualize. So in a way, students that are introduced younger now, they can have more of a gentle arc into CS education instead of being dropped in the deep end if they're trying
Well,
to learn
when
how
I
to
was in
code.
college doing programming, my programming class, it was one teacher. There were 3 different languages, and he literally would go, okay, if you're solving this problem, here's how you do it if you're learning this language. And he would look at some of the students, and then the other students were learning this. He's like, okay, so here's how you do it. And then he would go, okay, here's how you do it. And I was like, what?
Right,
So I'd have to go home and reteach myself.
right.
But I actually, so I have 2 younger kids. They're both elementary age, and they know how to program on Scratch. So
Right.
last year they actually helped me grade some of my students' work.
That's huge. That's tremendous. I mean, that is something that's so unique to give those students the ability to think visually. So I love hearing this feedback around Scratch and the visual tools. Anything else, Jen, as far as the questions on here and what you've seen, what your experience has been?
Well, again, based on what Sarah was saying, she's totally right. The kids come in and they think, I'm going to learn this because I like to do this, specifically game design, which I teach. They just think, oh, this is going to be awesome. But I don't just have, it's like, it's not just technology for me. Like, you have to understand the game design process. And so I have them creating, board games and card games. And these are things that they have to understand. But then when we move into digital game design, and I show them Unity or Maya or whatever it is we're trying to do. Like, I had to do JavaScript this year because I couldn't have access because of the Corona and all that.
Right.
But they were like, wait, what? I have to learn programming? I'm like, yes. How much attention did you pay in computer science? Because we don't got time for this.
Right.
And as far as them knowing like CS versus digital literacy, I think maybe they exit understanding a little bit better, but coming in,
Right.
I would say not as much as you would hope, considering how many of them want to go into the field.
Sure. And honestly, those are new terms for so many people. I don't hold it against any adults that don't know the difference because, like Sarah was saying, this whole world moves so quickly. Even full-time programmers, you've got to specialize so that your own skills don't become obsolete. But that's good to know that that it is worth redefining that definition, repeating it for students, because it's one of the things that we want to avoid is students thinking that all CS is coding or that you don't have to be digitally literate. Everyone has to be digitally literate, and not all jobs in CS are coding. And those are 2 misconceptions that we really want to help just wear down. And your feedback is critical in understanding how to better the curriculum and better the experience for students and teachers to make sure that those things are known. Anything else on your end, Jen? All right. So let's see here. Have any of these questions jumped out at anyone else? Any other different answers or any other different spins on some of these answers based on the classroom experiences that the rest of y'all have had?
For me, on the row for the students where it says, when we're talking about the difference between CS and digital literacy, And I think that has a lot to do with being a teacher. I don't think that I do a good job of explaining. Hold on. Is that me? Is that me causing the echo? Okay. I think that because I know it and I just assume because my mind is going a million miles to nothing, that it is lost in translation for the kids. So I have to do a better job of explaining the difference. I have more kids that they don't necessarily want to go into CS as much as they want to go into IT. They understand that they have to know a little bit of CS to do some of the IT out there in the world, because that's what my background was in. So I came from military. So all of the things that I learned how to do, really, it's almost like me and Jennifer need to switch. Because I was the one that did all the cybersecurity. I was the one that did the networking. I was the one that fell out of a drop ceiling in Korea and landed on my back because we had to learn how to actually do cabling. I was the one that made the server rack and the switches and all that look pretty, all the cable management stuff. I was the PC repair person. That's what I did in the military. And then even in my actual industry career, like when I left the military, I did the same thing. I was the IT manager. So coming into education, I kind of fell into education because I volunteered at my kids' school. So my degrees are all IT. So I didn't take any programming classes other than what I took in the military. And we did Pascal, Ada, and oh my gosh, Visual Basic.
Okay.
Because we had to this was back at the beginning of the internet. So when the internet was mosaic and the internet was gray with black text and blue links, no pictures, no nothing. So everything that I've learned over the past 6 years has been self-taught. So coming into the pilot, it helped me to realize the things that I was lacking and making sure that I wasn't transferring that information to like the things that I was scared about transferring that to my students, if that makes sense.
Right.
So as far as I'm confident in HTML, I'm confident in Java and in CSS. I'm still getting the hang of JavaScript. I'm comfortable in Python. What I'm not comfortable with, which helped me out being in the pilot, is coming up with assessments for the kids and projects, or just correlating it to something that is meaningful for them, where they have those light bulb moments. I see it sometimes, not all the time, in my students. And mainly because, going back to what Sarah originally said and what Jennifer said, that when our counselors talk about this as a pathway, the kids see the third level class and they see the word games. And they automatically think, I'm gonna make a video game. Boo, I don't know how to do that. That's not gonna happen here. And then they get mad because they are, well, I want to make a Fortnite game. You can't just make a Fortnite game by yourself. Fortnite has a team of people, and each team does a certain part of it. So I've in the past 13 months since we've been on COVID, when I am talking to the kids, I try to show them, okay, you know what? If you don't get this code, and it's okay, but I know that you know art very well. So let's look at how you can take your artwork and digitize it. Let's see how you can take that artwork, digitize it, and put it into Scratch or into like make a GIF or whatever. Oh, you like to talk, so you need to be the project manager. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm looking at doing is, and showing them that, you know, CS is not just about coding. And for someone who has no CS background whatsoever, I'm going to be honest, I first thought that that's what CS was. Is just coding. CS is coding. CS is coding and math, and it's not necessarily all of that.
Sure.
So, like I said, I do have students that want to be in a tech field, but not necessarily CS. And as far as like going back to the question with the digital literacy and the CS, I think that our kids think because they are consumers of technology that they don't have the skills, or that I have not provided them the skills to be content creators. And their definition of content creator is a YouTube channel,
Right.
and that's not it.
Right.
So
that's all great, Batavia. I liked hearing more about your background, more than I knew before, about a lot of the skills you picked up in the military service. And I want to hear more about Korea sometime in the future. Now is probably not the time, but that sounds fascinating.
How's my audio now?
Perfect, Richard.
Perfect.
Welcome.
Awesome.
Good to hear you.
Yes. Thanks, Batavia. For me, I'm self-taught. I was in the business world for a while. Those of you who remember Countrywide Loans, I was a loan officer for them for a while I was getting my business degree. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I've always been a tinkerer. I like to tinker with stuff. I've taken from Sarah's point of view, I had a Commodore 64. I was the games kid at school. We ran Apple IIe's at our school, Oregon Trail. Loved it. And then I had all the games, so everybody wanted to copy my stuff. I'm from a very, very small town out in the Midwest. That's probably why I left. There were very, very few opportunities out there, but I moved here, and I'm a jack of all trades, a master of none, I like to say. I've been again in mortgage, I've been a martial arts instructor, and I've been a substitute teacher, and now a full-time teacher. So I've done a lot of stuff. I know a lot of stuff, or a little bit of stuff about a lot of things. So, but I'm pretty well self-taught. I love HTML, CSS. Pretty good with JavaScript and making those things work. As far as the basic, very, very basic stuff, I can look at some code and kind of tell you what it does. And very good at, I have a saying, a web designer is another word, the way to say thief, or that we admire and acquire stuff and use it.
Right.
So, but it's, I'm having the same trouble with just like the ladies have said. I'm good with computers, and it is what a kid would say. Well, no, they're not. They like to play games. They know how to turn one on, or they can install a VPN. Ooh. So it's some of them, and some of I've had to get on, and one of them I actually had to kick out of school because he was trying to penetrate our firewall and do some mean, dirty, nasty things. But it's some of those things that you run into as an educator. Again, a math teacher could have had to do the same thing, Right. But again, I've seen the really high level students, and I've seen the really low level students too. But absolutely, CS is touching everything. So.
Well, Richard, thank you for the background. I can relate with you. I also love to tinker, and I'm more of a generalist than I am a specialist. So that jack of all trades, master of none, I can identify with that. When it comes to just so many interests, there's too many interesting things out there to pursue and too little time. Richard, as far as just programming confidence, do you lean more towards HTML, CSS? Do you like the Python, Java, JavaScript aspect? Where do your preferences lie?
I love HTML, CSS mainly, but I really like the JavaScript stuff that I've done through code.org and those mini web pages that you can program on a phone. I've given my students pretty pretty well prepared for that AP test, I think, in my mind anyway. It's my first year as an AP teacher. So.
Gotcha. Well, that's good to know. And then, so as far as your students, Richard, and their interest in the tech field, what have you noticed in your own classroom?
I've noticed, again, a broad array of things. Some of them, I have my intro kids. I have one class that really likes to talk and one class that won't hardly say a word. They want to sit there and unfortunately, they have Minecraft unblocked. So they play Minecraft. And some of them have understood that they can go the CS route through understanding how to talk to a computer, if you want to put it that way. And then some of them are clueless. But as far as interests go for my second and third level kids, some of them are, like Batavia said, were the art aspect or the music aspect. One of them is an audiophile and loves to get on Earsketch and create his own stuff. And I have a few that are probably going to go into some software engineering type things. We have a pretty good VEX team here at our high school, VEX Robotics, and I have probably three pretty good programmers that have figured out how those work, and they're the programmers for the team. So, and two of the three were directly from my class. So, good stuff.
That is good stuff. That's exciting when you've got some strong skill sets that are developing and budding, getting to see that as it grows. Well, before we move on from this slide, just want to do a last.
I just wanted to say, going back to what Sarah said before about being old, and in those days with the Commodore, and I actually did COBOL programming in college. So that was a long time ago.
Maxine, that is awesome. Did you know that there are COBOL programmers that are making close to $1 million working for various financial institutions? So you need to dust off those COBOL skills, Maxine.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, because that came out with, we actually had a class discussion about that, because my kids were like, Ms. B, what's COBOL? So I had to show them kind of what it looked like in comparison to what we had been doing up until this point. And one of the kids was like, yeah, my uncle is making 250 grand a year up in New Jersey, because all of the old legacy systems for the state are all running COBOL.
Mm-hmm.
So they couldn't keep up with the unemployment stuff that was coming down from the federal government. They couldn't process it fast enough. So yeah, girl.
Yeah, I was in New York. That's where I went to college, and they wanted me to do, or they recommended that I do artificial intelligence, and I'm like, what on earth is that? And can you imagine if I did that?
Well,
I didn't do artificial intelligence.
It's amazing how so much of today's infrastructure still runs on COBOL or Fortran. When you look at airport data programs or financial institutions, so those languages are still used in legacy systems. Can everyone see my screen all right? Dane and Jimmy messaged me, letting me know that there was a bit of a blackout there. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Good. Glad it's still showing up all right. So before we move on from this slide set, does anyone else want to chime in around background, classroom, or students, just for context? And we're going to send out a survey later, but this just kind of gets us kicked off while we're all on the call together. Well, all of that's a fabulous foundation. So thank you all for chiming in there. Very helpful to help Dane and Jimmy and I orient as we continue to work through the PD. All right. So we're going to go into a little bit more depth around our backgrounds and the technologies that we've used, just to illustrate where our experience has primarily been within computer science and some of the more technical arenas. I think that'll be beneficial for each of you when it comes to making the career connections for students this semester, next semester, and beyond, because the job titles, by and large, they stay about the same, but there are new ones being added every year as new technologies come out. A decade ago, there were definitely less DevOps professionals as there are now. And 5 years from now, I'm sure we're going to see far more in the realm of VR and job positions there that are realistic for students to be able to aim for. So Jimmy, if you want to take over for a moment and speak to just your technical skill set, and then we'll pass the buck to Dane, and then I'll wrap up just so that we can share some of those actual concrete skills that the students will be learning and how they apply.
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the primary languages that I like to play around with is Ruby. But I played around with Elixir, with C#. Never got a chance to do Visual Basic, but I did do VB.NET, which is the Visual Basic successor. Trying to think what else. I mean, HTML, JavaScript, CSS are givens for that. As far as frameworks, I used Backbone, Marionette, a little bit of Angular, a little bit of React, a little bit of Vue. My favorite's probably Vue. Sorry. Background, I mentioned company-wise, I've worked with some larger, some smaller. Probably the most interesting one background-wise was the cybersecurity one. We actually went out for an outing as a company, and we crashed the servers of the place we went out to by using an SQL injection attack in one of our usernames. So we were those guys. But it's in terms of what would be most useful here, definitely the JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and Ruby. And beyond that, I've had a hand in the ops side of things as well. So networking, actually setting up and deploying applications, those are all in my wheelhouse. So hope that helps. Any questions? Otherwise, I'll pass it off to Dane.
Okay, great. So, as I mentioned, I got my degree in computer science from the University of Georgia. And while I was in school, I worked with a number of different languages and was presented with a number of different languages to develop projects with. And those languages ranged from, well, actually, they kind of centered around the Java, the C family of languages. So C, C++, Java, but then they also, towards the latter half of my degree, we started getting more into web languages such as JavaScript and jQuery, CSS, HTML. And when I left school, the language that actually was most, or there were two languages that were actually most pertinent to me getting the job out in Silicon Valley. And those were PHP and SQL, because the system for Digication, which is the company I worked for, they were older. And so they ran on PHP. And I think PHP is, I do like the language. I like it a lot. It's not everybody's favorite. I think it's got a lot of merit. I enjoy working with it. Talking about like COBOL being a language that is still that is still around and still present. PHP isn't nearly as old as COBOL. However, it isn't something that I have seen as much, but having those PHP skills is nice to work on a lot of this legacy software that the University of Georgia still has, and then that Digication and similar companies still have. But when I worked for Digication, I worked with a lot of PHP and SQL at first, and then started moving more towards the front end. I was a full stack developer for them, so I did all kinds of stuff, but I worked a lot with JavaScript, HTML, and jQuery, and then React to build a lot of React applications. And then after leaving Digication, and when I was working for Digication, there were only 16 people in the company, but we serviced 6,000 universities across the US. So there was always work to do, and there was always new applications to build and data to move around. We had about 4 million students in our system. And so that, again, that's why languages like SQL, they were so important to be able to be a master of, because there was just a lot of data to move around. But after I left Digication, and then coming on here with Live Oak CS, it was more important to me to focus on web languages for a number of reasons, but one of which is just because they're so easy to run on any device that runs a web browser. So they are ideal for students to learn programming concepts on, because students can run them on their Chromebooks, whereas other languages like Java and Python, there can be real problems trying to run those languages on a device like a Chromebook, but you can run HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, no problem. And so with the Heart for Education, I really focused on those. And then, a few of y'all have commented on how game development can be a little bit deceiving. Students can go into it thinking that they'll just be playing games and getting to enjoy being a gamer, and how there's a lot more to that than just playing games. But I really wanted to develop a in-house game engine for Live Oak CS. And so I had to use a lot of mathematics to do that. So I had to brush up on my calculus skills and my linear algebra skills to build a JavaScript-based game engine that we run 2D games on top of now. And so I had to hone those skill sets to be able to be an effective game developer. And then in my current work, it's using a lot of different web languages to present different coding projects to students. And so, and then I would also say what's so important, and this is not something that I really understood until I went to college, are the soft skills. They're incredibly necessary for being able to do well in this industry. I think maybe at one time or another, when there was less specialization in computer science, there were maybe the stereotype of a computer programmer sitting all alone and sequestered away from society maybe had more weight to it and merit, but definitely not today. I've learned that it's so important to be an effective communicator. Earlier on in the meeting, Kimball, mentioned that his favorite language is English. Well, just being able to communicate effectively with your team and work effectively as a team member is so essential today to being able to be a valuable member of a company or an education team. And so I would say, just today, like my skills are definitely heavy on the web programming side of things, definitely math heavy just because of the line of work that I'm in and what I do. But also it's so important just to be able to communicate effectively with the people that you're working with, and being able to have, give and take and compromise even, where it's needed on creative ideas and designs. So yeah, those are the specific skill sets that I've worked with, that I continue to work with. And if there are any questions, fire away. And if not, I'll go ahead and pass it off to Kimball.
When I started building websites, I used HTML and CSS quite a bit in high school when I was doing web development, web design for local businesses in the Atlanta area. And frankly, I was scared of JavaScript. I knew what it was, I knew what it could do, but I'd never actually got it to work very well for me. So it was just off-putting to me and a little intimidating. So during high school, I really didn't touch JavaScript. It wasn't until I was in college getting my first internship that I started to actually code. HTML and CSS, we can call them coding. They are. They're symbolic languages, but they're not programming. They're not truly scripting. They're not dynamic enough. JavaScript is, though. So in college, I began to use JavaScript, and it was really a sink or swim experience for me. I was able to get my first co-op position building software for Home Depot through a third-party company by my web portfolio I had all these websites I designed, and the owner of the small software company was impressed. So he gave me the opportunity. And he knew I didn't know any JavaScript, but he wasn't too concerned about that. He gave me 2 weeks to build a sample application. And I was terrified that I was going to be fired if I wasn't able to deliver on it. So it was a bit of a pressure cooker learning environment. Um, I spent 2 weeks building the sample application, and I learned everything I could about JavaScript online. I probably put myself under more pressure than I needed to, but at the end of it, at the end of 2 weeks, I had a very firm grasp of JavaScript, and I've been using it ever since. As I went on into full-time employment with that company, we used PHP, SQL, we used Perl, we ran our apps on Linux servers, and I learned so much in that work-based opportunity leading into my first job with Linux commands and the way that most applications are being run as far as SaaS applications, software as a service in the cloud. I used a lot of CSS, XML, JavaScript, um, JSON. So mostly predominantly web technologies. And that company grew from a 5-person team to a 50-person team during my time there. So I can confidently say there's great demand for professionals with the web technology skill sets. And then the Live Oak portal that we've built for the curriculum, that is built with Ruby on Rails. I am no longer a daily software developer. I don't code on a daily basis. I love coding. I love programming. Jimmy is our CTO. So developing and coding is his bread and butter. He breathes it. He is our heavy hitter. Every day that I spend more focused on the communication side and the team building side is a day where I haven't been coding as much. So there's only so much time in a day, and you've got to really pick your specialization. And mine is more so the team building and advocating for our tools, our curriculum, our product, building connections. So it's Richard, for those of us that want to try a little bit of everything, the computing world is tempting and frustrating because there's so much to do. But I have loved my experience using web tech, but I have definitely focused more so on the graphic design aspect of CS, user interface design, system design, managing teams that are collaborating together to obtain a final product and take a product and deliver it to users. So I learned about so many roles in my first job in CS that have nothing to do with coding itself. There are ticket management roles, there are QA roles, support roles. I would say only 25% of the positions in my previous software company were actually coding roles. So the other 75% of the team members worked in either managerial capacities, graphic design, user interface design, support. And I think it's so important that students know this. You do not have to code to work in a technology company. And I will echo what Dane said. It was never my coding skills that got me a job in coding. It was always the soft skills. So it's I think it's paramount that students understand being a good team player, communicating clearly and effectively, being able to have a good resume, having a portfolio, and coming across well in an interview. Those are going to trump the coding skills almost every time. You know, as long as the coding skills are decent and you're willing to learn, there will be opportunity. So that's, even though we are a computer science curriculum company with Live Oak CS, we just find from our own experiences, it's so important to stress the soft skills and the digital literacy. You know, it's more important that most students know how to manage email well and set up Zoom calls and use Slack and know how to zip and unzip files than they do code. And that's what we want to push with the digital literacy, because I think the adult generations currently, we often take it for granted that students are digital natives. I don't think there's any such thing as a digital native. Students are natively playing video games, but they're not going to know how to unzip a file unless someone teaches them. We grew up in an era where we're tinkering on desktop computers. Students are growing up in an era where everyone's got an iPad or an iPhone. And frankly, there's less tinkering because of that. So I think we need to be even more aware about teaching students the basics when it comes to using Google Docs, using Google Drive, managing Gmail, file management, all this basic stuff. So I'll step off my soapbox there so we can move on to the next section here. But hopefully some of the background material will prove useful as we move down the PD sessions. Let's see here. All right. So we're going to go ahead and start diving into some actual demos in a moment of the portal, where the project is that we're going to be tackling through PD. So for our spring 2021 CSPD, we want to give you all this Live Oak Computer Science 101. We're going to talk about what Live Oak Computer Science is, why we're promoting computer science and digital literacy education, and how we're accomplishing that within the schools and with teachers in partnership. So moving to the next slide here, just a little bit of history about how Live Oak CS got started and why. 3 years ago, we were exclusively designing software for businesses. We designed project management applications for surveyors, engineers, and the telecom sector. So we service a number of companies throughout Georgia, and we build project management logistics apps. Basically, just applications telling people where they need to be for jobs, what they need to be doing, whether they're surveying a cell tower or remediating an environmental gas spill. Those are the sectors that we've built solutions for. So it's just project management tools that have been our primary focus. And that's the software company that we've been growing here in McDonough. After a year or two of growing that company, we realized we were having a harder time finding the engineers that we needed here in McDonough in Henry County. So we started teaching coffee shop coding classes roughly a year and a half, 2 years ago now. That was pre-COVID. Quite a bit has changed since then. So we started teaching these coffee shop classes. Dane was leading those up just to invest in more coding abilities in Henry County. And that's actually how we met Batavia and got the conversation started with Henry County over a year and a half ago. After the coffee shop coding classes continued, we realized students are having a hard time making it to these classes because they're outside of school hours. If we're going to continue teaching students in a physical environment, we have got to read up on the liability and make sure that we're protecting ourselves, protecting the students. There's a whole lot that comes with that when it comes to in-person teaching. You know, we wanted to teach, but we didn't want to add a whole new complex layer to our team members day to day when it comes to the liability of being in person, since we're not a school. So we started moving our curriculum online. And that was just pure coincidence before COVID came. We were moving our curriculum online, developing our CS curriculum, building a portal to house it and make it easy for teachers to walk through, because we knew we enjoyed building the CS curriculum and we had beneficial materials to share, but we wanted to be able to share them with more people. As that continued to grow, we then started talking with the DOE. We were pulling in all of the standards for the Georgia computer science classes. And by that time, it just felt like a natural fit to begin working with school districts throughout Georgia to supply these turnkey computer science courses with the assessments and the lesson plans, just to make life easier for the teachers and students. That's what led to the pilot with Batavia and Maxine and Carrie Edwards and Dr. Walton. And that's the step that's led us here to the PD. So from the very beginning with Live Oak Computer Science, our team has taken the approach that project-based learning is one of the best ways for students to get real-world skills and to build a portfolio. So you can't learn how to code unless you actually code. And I know that all of you as teachers are keenly aware of that. Beyond that, once you've built something, you want to show it off to people. You want to show it to family and friends, your teacher, your parents, and future employers, and potentially universities. I cannot say enough good things about keeping up a portfolio. That's opened up a lot of doors for myself professionally. So part of what we do in the Live Oak model is build projects, then show those projects off in student portfolios. And that's part of the Live Oak system. And we'll take a look at that in a little bit. Then the career connections is another key component to the Live Oak experience. This is actually a feature that was suggested by Carrie Edwards, and our team went back to the drawing boards and built it. It's essentially a library of careers, kind of like baseball cards of careers. At the end of every chapter of content, students can see what type of career could I apply these skills I've learned within. And then y'all are going to see a pattern here, but I'm going to go ahead and hit on this as well. Within Live Oak Computer Science, we really are trying to distill the differences between digital literacy and computer science for students, teachers, and all the rest of us. Everyone needs to know this distinction. Digital literacy is for every career. All modern careers will be impacted. Retail, food service, construction, teaching, finance, healthcare, agriculture, the list goes on and on. And then as far as students and their understanding of CS, not everyone needs to code. Everyone needs to code about as much as everyone needs to be a plumber. It's fascinating, and I think it's good for people to appreciate how our modern plumbing works. It's good for people to understand some basics around how coding works. But you don't have to be a plumber to work in a construction company, and you don't have to be a coder to work in a tech company. And we want to make sure that comes across to students loud and clear, because otherwise there's opportunities they're going to miss. Any questions on any of these talking points before we move on to the next slide, everybody? Okay, we'll move along then. So I am going to hand things over to Jimmy. We're actually going to crack open the Live Oak portal. Everyone should have received an invite to your Henry County email address. If you didn't, let us know before the meeting's up. We'll make sure you have access. But Jimmy's going to take over here and then give you all a tour through the system that Batavia and Maxine have been using throughout the pilot. And it's the same system that you all will use for our PD project. We're going to be tackling one project over the course of the next few PD sessions. And Jimmy will tee up the actual system. Then Dane will take over and walk through some of the curriculum and the way that the information is laid out. So I am going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen to allow Jimmy to take over.
Okay.
And
Kimball mentioned going over the basics, so here they are. First off, can you see my screen? You should see a web browser with a portal at the top. Okay, I don't hear anyone, but hopefully, okay, good.
I can see it, Jimmy.
Thanks, Kimball.
And do we want to back up to, even the login page, just so that folks can get a sense of where they'll be starting off?
Man,
Sure. Sure. Okay. All right, so let's log out. So if you have a Google account, which I do, that's probably the easiest way to jump into the system. By the way, if you go to, this is at portal.liveoakcs.com. There's also a link to it from liveoakcs.com if you missed the portal part. So from here, just log in with Google, and you can choose your Google username. And for me, I'm going to switch my school. Most of you won't have to do this. So I'm going to go to Live Oak Academy. So this is the school that you all are going to be completing the coursework for the PD in. I'm going to switch over to a student view within this, just so that we can see what you're going to see. So you'll be completing you'll be completing work and your audits within PD as a student. So this is the view that you'll see here. One thing I want to mention too, for those of you who have been in the system before, so that would be Batavia and Maxine. There might be some others who have a login to one of the Henry County schools. When you log in for the first time, you'll likely be logged in the school that you've been working in. If you want to use the Live Oak Academy school, which is where we'll do the PD, you'd want to go over here to switch school on the left-hand side, and you'd see your Live Oak Academy school here, and you can switch back and forth between those schools as desired. So if I wanted to, so I added Henry County High School to this sample account just to kind of give you an example. So if I switched here, I'm going to be in Henry County High School, and I can switch right back to Live Oak. So it's a pretty easy toggle process. So when you jump in, you're going to see a project that's already set up. You'll be invited to a project, so you'll be able to jump right in. There's no, you won't have to create a new one. It'll be there for you. For our purposes, we'll take a look at multi-page website demo. We'll just jump right in here. So there's a few tabs to be aware of. Content is going to be where all of your videos are stored. So we'll just take a look real quick. I mean, I'll let Dane walk through the bulk of the content, but you can look at, we've got career connections are going to be here. If there are any that are associated with a particular chapter that you're looking at, you can click any one of these to actually open up a section, and sections can have videos or text associated with them. Okay, so that's content. If we jump back to the dashboard here, and we go to activity. So activity is going to be, if you think of it as a news feed, just like you would on one of the social networking sites, you're going to see information about different assignments that have been published. You'll only see assignments that are published as you need them. So rather than publish every assignment for a course right away, we'll publish them incrementally, so you'll know exactly what to start on. For our purposes, for the demo, I published a few. Usually you'd only see 1 or 2 at a time, just to kind of give you a flavor for what types of assignments we have. So this is an assignment where you would submit you'll actually attach a zip file, and that would be, when you'll submit it and save it, and then we as the teaching team will review that and give you a grade based on the content you've submitted. If we go back, and I'll jump over here to this is also on the far right here. If you ever get lost going through the activity tab, you can see every assignment that you have that's been published within a course quickly at a glance. So that's over here on the far right. So that's another type of assignment that you'll see semi-often is a download assignment. So here, you can actually click to download this. So this is actually going to be a zip file that you download. And once you open that up, you'll see a README, and that'll actually give you the bulk of how you'll use that. But that's going to be a full directory for different website files that you'll then have to edit, and then you'll upload in another assignment. The last type of assignment that you'll see pretty regularly is a quiz. So if we take a look at that, this is just what it sounds like. It's a multiple choice quiz. There can be some open-ended questions as well. So we'll just cycle through a series of questions, give answers, and then finish that as well. For the quizzes, they'll be able to be auto-graded, so you'll see feedback right away. For those assignments that you're uploading documents for, that'll be a manual process. So the feedback will be based on when your instructor, which will likely be Dane, will actually get to it. Okay, so that is content, activity, and assignments. The only other tab is people. You're not going to have too much interaction with this, but you'll be able to see at a glance who else is working within your course. If you ever need to reach out to anyone, you can do that within here in the activity stream. You can send a direct message to your teachers. You can comment on assignments. And also what'll probably be most useful once we pass it over to Dane, you'll actually be able to communicate with him as an instructor, since it'll likely be that you'll be working on a lot of this after hours. The only other thing I wanted to show you quickly is a lot of your content is going to have things like glossary terms. This one doesn't, but just like with any series of terms within content, you might forget what chapter you're in or a section that you saw it in, but you remember the term. So if you go over to glossary or to API, you'll be able to quickly search through the glossary terms in the API, just to jog your memory as to a particular piece of the DOM or just a concept that you needed to remember. So a good way to divide these up: glossary terms are concepts, and many times tags. API tends to be methods. So think add event listener would be API, a glossary term, you'd see 5G, that kind of stuff. So they're all the abstract terms that would go with that. The only other thing that I wanted to show you is, so Kimball mentioned the portfolio. By the way, you won't see this banner. This is just for me because I'm emulating a user. So if we take a look at the portfolio, this is something that your students will get to use, and you can as well as you go through this project. So if that's the admin section. So if I click on the portfolio here, this gives me an example to write a quick blurb about my job history and maybe some projects that I've worked on. Again, a little bit more. So home, more project-based, job history, career goals, interests, and skills, right? We mentioned some of the languages that we worked on. And then so we mentioned that we're going to be downloading and then uploading projects as zip files. And so if you want to actually demo some of the work that you've gone through, or your students want to do the same, you can actually go and add a new course project here. So I'm just going to give you an example of one that I worked on. I spent a lot of time on this one pager here, but just, we can handle sites that are, 70, 80 files large, which are going to be some of the more complex sites. For example, liveoakcs.com is, that's a more complex site that can be handled within this framework, or a more simple site. But basically what this is doing is it's setting up a simple website based on the files that you upload, and then rendering it in an iframe. Looks like someone's making a call, so someone may need to mute.
Hey, Tracy, this is Sarah Franklin. I'm here with my daughter, Allie, for her appointment at 5.
Let's see.
Sarah,
Kimball, are you able to
you're,
mute that participant?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get her
Okay,
muted.
all right, thank you.
Let's see.
I think if you go to the participants, you're able to mute them.
Yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Let's see.
But
There it is. There it is. Okay. And
Awesome.
well,
all right.
I'm clicking the mute button, but it's not muting.
That's
Okay.
that's not what she's on the okay. You
There we are. All right, perfect.
Okay, so that's the high level walkthrough of the things that you're going to be working on. There are other parts of the application that you'll dive into a bit more as a teacher, but for PD, you're going to be coming at it from a student perspective. So with that all being said, are there any questions around that? Before we turn it over to Dane and just give a quick high level on curriculum.
Jimmy, quick question. I'm noticing, and I was kind of looking at the chat too. Are we supposed to have the multi-page website project or the Hello World project? Because I think all of us are seeing Hello World in
Good
our
question.
project section.
Correct.
Yep, great question. So you'll start with Hello World. I did want to give you a demo just on something that was kind of a coming soon thing, but yeah, you'll start in Hello World.
Okay, and with me and Maxine, since we've already done this,
We were thinking about that, Batavia, and I'm glad you asked.
I saw that calculator course, and I'm like, ooh, I want to do it. Okay.
So, Batavia, we don't expect you and Maxine to redo the Hello World project. You, Dane, Maxine, and I can get together offline over email, and then we can pick a new project based on either y'all's preference or just, we can show you what we have and get something alternative for Hello World. It's either that or you all, I know you've already done Hello World, so it's either take a break, but I'm hoping y'all want to learn something new with us, so we can tee up a new project.
I'll do it.
Okay, perfect.
I want to challenge myself. I would like to do a
I'll
little
do
bit
it.
more of JavaScript. I think I got the CSS and HTML down for the most part, but JavaScript is starting to be my new favorite love next to Python. So if whatever y'all got with that, I'm gun ho.
Okay, perfect. That sounds great. We're excited. And if anyone else gets jealous of the project that Batavia and Maxine will do, we can open it up to anyone who wants to take it. you know, we're trying not to overload you all with extra work. I know everyone's super busy at the end of the year. Hello World is a accessible project. Dane will give details around it, but if anyone wants to tackle the bonus project we give Maxine and Batavia, we can make it available for everybody.
Any questions about the interface that you'll all be working in? Okay. All right. Well, then I think we'll pass it off to Dane for a high level on the curriculum.
Perfect. Thanks, Jimmy.
Okay, great. Can everybody see my screen all right? Good. All right, so we're going to be taking a look at the Hello World project that y'all will have available to you, this Hello World course. And you see we've got two here in the system. We have a middle school level and a high school level. Y'all will be going through the high school level Hello World project. And so once you enter into this project, you'll see the project description right here, where you get a textual description of the content to come within the project itself. So this is just the project level. It's the highest level view you would have for your project. And then if you want further details in a more visual way, you could just simply watch the project intro video right here. And so I'm going to open it up just so y'all can see you know, what a short snippet this is of just giving you an overview of what this project entails. Welcome to the Web Basics Hello World course presented by Live Oak CS. In this course, we will explore three of the most important web programming languages: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We will learn how HTML, CSS, and JavaScript work together to create simple web pages like the Hello World web page you see here. We will learn how to create HTML content like buttons and text, learn to style our web page with CSS, and see how JavaScript works to create behavior such as changing text colors, resizing text, and moving text around. All of these are very basic JavaScript commands, but are incredibly helpful in understanding how web pages work on the internet. This Web Basics course is a great first step into the world of programming, so let's get started. So every course that you'll see here, every project, rather, I'll say, every project that you'll see here in the Live Oak system will have a project description and a project level video, and that will give you an overview of what's to come. And then if you scroll down, you'll see the chapters, just like you saw in the demo course that Jimmy was presenting. And just to give you like a quick analogy of how to think about the way all this is set up, it's set up like a textbook, where the textbook could be thought of as a project, and then within that are chapters. And then if you're going through a textbook, the chapters will have different sections: 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, so on and so forth. It's set up the same way here. So it's very intuitive. Just you have your project level, and then you can dive into a chapter. So I'm going to go here into chapter 2 of this Hello World course. And actually, before I dive into chapter 2, let me just show you chapter 1 here in Hello World. This is just trying to ensure that you have a text editor that's set up for you. We have recommendations here. In the videos, use the Sublime text editor on my machine. I love Sublime. It's free and it's excellent. But for students, we recommend the text editor that's available to them on their Chromebooks. And then we just provide associated links for being able to download these appropriate text editors. And then also ensuring that you have the Google Chrome web browser downloaded and that you're using that web browser. It's not required that you do, but it's nice because that's what I use. And that way, whatever you're seeing in your web browser is identical to what I'm seeing on mine and what I'm presenting to you in the video. So project 1 is pretty easy. It's just these 2 sections, just ensuring that you have a text editor and that you have the Google Chrome web browser downloaded. Once you get into chapter 2, you're being introduced to HTML and you're going over the basics of HTML. So these basics will include, obviously, what is it and what's the history of HTML, and there'll be a video, a section video associated with this content, and then section text content below this video, and an overview of what you're covering in this section, and then a task that's associated with an assignment. And you'll also see, if you're going into a section, that you'll have glossary terms associated with this section content. So it's really important that all of the terms that are introduced or even mentioned in this section's content, that we have those affiliated here with the section. So that way, if it's something new to you, you can learn what that term is and what the definition is, and how it relates to the other content. Or if it's something you've encountered before, you can brush up on your knowledge and get a reminder about what this stuff is, such as what are HTML tags, and you'll get the definition. And so each section will have glossary terms associated with it. So you'll have, so right here, again, we're in this chapter 2 of the Hello World project is an introduction to HTML, and you'll go through what is HTML, a section then on HTML syntax, HTML elements, and then HTML images and file paths. So starting to get into the meat of what HTML is all about. And then after you've completed section 4, you'll take the HTML quiz 1 and the HTML quiz 2. And so if I open up this quiz, now I'm looking at it from an admin view, so I'm seeing, the correct answers and the incorrect answers. But this is going to be the very first quiz that you encounter in HTML. Such as, what does the acronym HTML stand for? HTML provides a web page with, which of the following? And then just other general questions about HTML and programming in general, as it's been presented and introduced here in this Hello World program. Each quiz is going to be no more than 10 questions. So that way, a nice, there's a nice scope of content covered in them, and the majority of them will be multi-choice. Every once in a while, there will be a short answer, but the majority of them will be multi-choice, and they're auto-graded on the back end. And so now, if I go back to the Hello World course, let's dive into what chapter 2 is all about. So chapter 3 rather. So chapter 2 is all about HTML, and then chapter 3 introduces you to CSS and shows you how to marry the concepts of CSS and styling to your HTML code. And so this project really, it assumes that there is no coding knowledge, so that there aren't any stones that are left unturned or any gaps in anyone's knowledge. But it revs up as it cooks along here. And so in this chapter, you learn all about CSS rule sets, CSS selectors, and declaration blocks, and how those are used to target specific HTML elements and manipulate their style. And so you can see here, we have, the very first section being what is CSS, everything to know about CSS selectors. And again, you'll continue to have glossary terms that are following you throughout the course of this project. And then
I'm probably putting the cart before the horse. But on Chromebooks, it's extremely hard to access the file system.
Mm-hmm.
So linking in the HTML and CSS pages are nightmare. that I found an easy way to do. That there's students are going to have problems if that's the case that I've found.
Mm-hmm.
Richard, what we did was in the pilot, in the beginning, everything was, of course, it was a lot of trial and error. What we did was at first, Maxine was using something different, and then I used Replit. Replit worked great for the students doing the work in the portal, and then what I had them to do was they watched the videos first. They watched Dane do his thing, and then we came back and coded together, and that kind of alleviated the problem until we got to open up that text program that all of the Chromebooks should have. What we discovered in the process of using text, and Maxine, correct me if I'm wrong, the kids had an issue with the downloading of the files and remembering where their files were. So we spent a lot of time making sure that they were in the correct folder. That is going to be alleviated and eliminated with the newer features that they are in the process of adding, because we knew that if it was going to be a problem for us, it was going to definitely be a problem for you guys. So they're actually integrating the coding sections within the Live Oak portal for the students for next year. So we won't have to worry about file management and all that stuff.
Thank you. I just, alarm bells were ringing in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that-
opening those zip files and everything.
Yes, they did not understand the concept
It
of
got so
zip
lost.
Yes, no, Richard, that's a great question. I'm happy you brought it up. And actually, Jimmy, just since the in portal editor was brought up, that feature, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. Yeah, so some of the assignment types that we'll be looking at in the future, and again, this is not going to be PD related, but we'll be looking at code type assignments where you'll have a series of tests that you'll then have to make pass, which is more akin to what I'll typically do on a daily basis. We'll also, with respect to the downloading of files, the files will just be there. If you've ever used a tool like JS Fiddle, that's kind of the format that we're looking to do. Any questions around that?
No, that answers them. Thank you very much.
Good question, Richard.
Great. And so then, like just to follow up on all of that, yes, we definitely figured out that to your point, Richard, and in Maxine and Batavi's experience, that navigating the file systems on Chromebooks was very difficult for the students, and so all of these features as they come in will mitigate and alleviate those issues. But what's great is the content will be able to stay the same. The students will just be, we'll point them to a different area to actually complete all their coding assignments. So yeah, it'll be great. And so then as they continue and as y'all continue with the Hello World project here, you'll integrate your CSS. And then after your CSS and all your styling is integrated, and again, you've taken your quizzes just to ensure that you have you understand the concepts at hand. You'll move on to chapter 4, which is an introduction to JavaScript, and that's actually, for those of you who are familiar with JavaScript, that's you adding behavior and dynamic capability to your web page. And once you get to that point, you will be adding in just a lot of functions and conditional logic into your Hello World project. And so what I love about this project is it gives you and anybody else who takes it a wonderful, more in-depth understanding of how these three languages, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, all come together to work together to make a website that is interactive. And so it's all the fundamentals that are necessary to know to begin making web pages in a really meaningful way. And so you start with the very first section of what is JavaScript, move on to JavaScript syntax and variables, move on to HTML buttons and JavaScript functions. And I would like to point out that not only will you be seeing glossary terms with your sections, but when it's needed and when it's appropriate, you'll also see API references. And so the snippets of code that maybe are new or you simply need a refresher on, we will have those here along with their definitions. So that way you can have instructions on how to use it, what this particular function is used for in JavaScript, and how you can incorporate it into your code. And so API stands for Application Programming Interface, and it's just essentially a library for you. It's analogous to a library where you can go and use different functions associated with a programming language, in this case, JavaScript. And so you see, we have this pattern, with all the sections. There's a section video typically, or an image, but in this case, for the Hello World project, they're all videos. And we have glossary terms, and we have section content that's textual, and then we have the API references. And then you'll complete assignments as you continue moving through the project. Then the very last chapter in this is working further to integrate all three of these languages together, and then create your end point for your Hello World project, where you have the array of buttons that are linked to HTML elements of particular IDs, and then you're using event listeners to trigger different actions that will manipulate the styling and the positioning of your Hello World heading that you'll have presented on your web page. And so again, we love starting off students and all of us inside of this Hello World project, just because it fills in any gaps, particularly with the JavaScript. HTML and CSS, it's a lot of the basics, but with JavaScript, it is the basics, but it's stuff that really is valuable to know, because sometimes JavaScript can be more tricky. And so this is a great place to start. It's a great project to start with. And there's one other thing that I wanted to mention. As I've gone through the chapters, you'll see, like here in chapter 2, there is a submit chapter 2 project code, and in chapter 3, you'll see submit chapter 3 project code, and you'll see the same in 4 and 5. But if you open that up, that's simply a place for you to submit, once you get through all this entire chapter 2, the code that you have at that point, after you've completed the 4 sections worth of content, you'll upload this code to this assignment and submit it. And then again, right now I'm looking at an admin view. So you'll see here that I actually have a button to download the solutions so that I can check. I can cross-examine that with the code that I've been given. But for y'all have a upload button that's similar to what Jimmy demoed in the demo course, just a place for you to upload your code. And that is the sum of the Hello World project. And so it's 5 chapters, but the first one is just project setup. And then the other 4 chapters here is an introduction to HTML, introduction to CSS, introduction to JavaScript, and then working to combine all 3 of them and integrate them to make a meaningful website. So any other questions about this?
We've got one, Dane, in the chat from Sarah. So
Yeah.
I'll read it. Is it possible to have the assignments/sections also show the standards or learning targets they're
Great.
associated with, visible for the students?
Yeah. So that's such a great question. The answer is yes. So let me go actually, and let me enter.
Go into multi-page web project, because that's where y'all started from the feedback that Maxine and I gave, where she can see that y'all have been uploading the standards and matching them to the lessons.
Okay.
Dane, if you just start at the homepage of that, you can show Sarah what the standards look like. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, here you are. So right here with this project, you can see right here at the project level, each of the standard groups that are affiliated and associated with this project. So these are the standards that this project is hitting. And so that's such a great question. And it's something that it was feedback, that we received from Maxine and Batavia, and it was features that we worked on and now have integrated, so we can map all of the standards that are coming from IDT, CSP, PGAS, all these different courses at the high school level, and then also at the middle school level, any course at any level. We have these standard groups residing now in our system, and we can map them.
The standards are also with the lesson plans.
Yes, and we also have the standards present within the lesson plans that teachers will be utilizing within their classroom.
Mm-hmm. You are also planning to put the lesson plans on the portal so that they'll be readily available as opposed to going to the PDF.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, while we worked with Batavia and Maxine, we learned how essential lesson plans were. and are to teacher success in the classroom. And so while we were working with them in tandem, I was creating PDF lesson plans to go along with the section content. And we will have all of those lesson plans easily downloadable on a project level here in Portal. So that's something that teachers will have ready access to.
Okay, so it's safe to say that what for the purposes of our professional development, outside of Maxine and I, everybody else is just pretty much learning how to navigate the portal, learning the content of one of the courses, and then what later on this summer, once all of the lesson plans and all that stuff are added in, we go back and we just do like a follow-up to say, okay, y'all, these are the features that we worked on over the summer from y'all's feedback. Here's where everything is located. Is that going to be, is that safe to say that's the plan?
That's the plan. That's it, Batavia. So as we prep for serving Henry County teachers and students this fall in middle and high school, we'll be wrapping up some of the new feature concepts, and we'll hold a traditional onboarding, which all the teachers in this PD will be ahead of the game for. But we'll have that onboarding with new feature demos and showing off the standards that connect to the classes that'll be ready for teaching this fall. So this PD is really kind of an extension of this semester, getting some new ideas bouncing around before next semester starts. And then we'll have some dedicated onboarding time too as fall rolls around.
I do have a question, and I am muted. I hope it's working.
It is. It is. Hey, Sarah.
Okay. So my question is, for this particular, the platform, which class are we going to be using it with? I mean, I know with the standards, it kind of goes into all three, but which one were we saying we were teaching this from? I just want to make sure I'm understanding where we're using it.
Sure. So we have been working on courses for IDT, CSP, and PGAS. That is what Henry County will be using the platform for this fall. That's at a high school level.
Okay.
At a middle school level, it'll be FID and FCP.
Okay. So we'll be able to log in to use this in all three classes, essentially.
That's correct.
For my class. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Dane, if you want to wrap up the curriculum end and maybe just talk through how we're going to be handling teacher support as they're,
I just wanted to say we used the 2 projects for the PGAS. Yeah, that's basically it. That's why I did the HTML EOPAs, because that covered the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
I'm glad those projects could align well with the EOPAs. That's one thing that Maxine and Batavia and our team waded through together, learning just how disconnected many of the EOPAs are from the actual standards that Georgia has provided, which is unfortunate, but it prompted our relationship with the DOE. So we've been having a really good time getting to know Delda Hagen better, Brian Cox better, and provide feedback for a number of the standards that they're currently revising. So we're excited about doing what we can to work with the DOE to create some better alignment between the Georgia standards and the EOPAs as we all continue to move down this track together. All right, Dane, anything else in closing out curriculum?
No, that's it. So just this is the Hello World project is what is available for y'all and what we want y'all to go through just over the course of our PD together. And I'm looking forward to discussion points that come around the content and any comments and suggestions that y'all have as you go through it. But I'm really looking forward to learning together, and hopefully if it's review, it's meaningful review, and if it's filling gaps in your current knowledge base, then it's doing its job. And so yeah, that's it from me. And now I'll hand things off to Kimball.
Thanks, Dane. So if anyone feels like the Hello World project is something that they've already got mastered backwards and forwards, reach out to myself or Dane. Let us know. And whatever project we end up settling on with Maxine and Batavia, we'll open that up as well. I think that if anyone's shaky at all, even a little bit with CSS or JavaScript, Hello World is going to be a great new challenge and adventure. But if you all have scanned it, and if anyone feels like I know all this backwards and forwards, and I would rather have another challenge in the Live Oak portal to get familiar with the system, then just let us know, and we'll hook that up as we get Maxine and Batavia launched on a different project, since they've already completed Hello World. So let's see here. We've got a few minutes left before our 5:30 wrap-up time. So I am going to share the last few slides here, and we'll move through them to wrap things up. Okay, so we have explored the Live Oak portal. We have taken a look at the curriculum. Thanks a bunch, Jimmy and Dane. I appreciate you both walking everyone through the system. So let's talk about homework. We're going to be making homework as painless as possible for everyone, since I know everyone's so busy. I don't even like the word homework. Do y'all have a better word for homework that you use in your classes? Is it just homework?
I don't give homework.
Oh, that's great, Maxine. Well, Jimmy and Dane, we need to come up with a new term for this. Maybe we'll call it
Fun
home
work.
projects. Homework? Fun work?
Fun work.
Okay. Well, for anyone here that really enjoys CS, hopefully this will be fun. And I think it'll definitely be educational. And we're going to do our absolute best to just make it a enjoyable experience for everybody. And first and foremost, we're not trying to make this too much. I know that you all have so many different things going on beyond this PD. So we're really just going to be focused on 3 small areas. The first item is auditing the Hello World project. And then another project, of course, for Maxine and Batavia, and anyone else who feels like they'd rather do something other than Hello World if their skill set has already eclipsed that. That'll be straightforward. Logging into the Live Oak CS portal, watching the project videos, and then building out the Hello World project. The second component is completing the CS teacher survey. It'll have some more specific questions beyond the ones that we talked about and recorded in today's video. We'll email out the survey link. Then if everyone can run through the questions, we'll make them short and sweet. Then we'll discuss the results, and our team will use this to improve the experience throughout the rest of PD on into the fall. And then the final item is we'll be picking a few videos out that are 5 to 10 minutes in length. And if everyone can find a little time to watch these, this is my favorite part, honestly. We live in such an incredible time where we can listen to the world's leading minds that are developing new tools in computing or considering ethical problems in computing. TED Talks has quite a few really great speakers that speak to concepts such as machine learning, AI, the future of work and the economy, and how we all fit into it. So I've got 2 videos teed up here, one with Tristan Harris. He used to work at Google, and now he is an evangelist for ethical technology. And the other one is by Kevin Roos. Kevin is a journalist for the New York Times, and he realized that computers were on their way to taking his job away. So he wrote a book called Future Proof, talking around how we have to embrace what humans are best at in order to not be outperformed by technology in the long run. So both those videos combined are no more than 20, 25 minutes in total length. And I think it'd be phenomenal for us to discuss those in our next PD session a week from today. Any questions around just the PD activities that we've created for everybody? Our goal was to do more than just talk on Zoom meetings. We did not want this PD just to be a drive-by PD. We also don't want it to be overloaded with activities or work. So we're trying to be pretty lean with the take-home activities, but with anyone who's going to be using the Live Oak system later this fall, you'll be that much farther ahead of the game by knowing how the system works experiencing the portal and being familiar with the format and the material. So I'm going to email out all these slides. I'm going to email out the recording of today's PD. We'll send the teacher survey link as well. We don't have as much time to discuss these next slides, but most of this is going to be rolled into the next few PD sessions anyway. So some of the stuff that we're really excited to dig in with all of you is the future of computing. You know, we know what's happened in the past. We have a rough idea of where the present's at, but we've got some pretty good indicators telling us where we're headed with the future of computing. So we'll talk about things that you might not have heard of before, RPAs, robotic process automation. These are applications that are automating away a lot of white collar work. We're going to talk about AI. How powerful is it really? You know, we hear about the whole spooky side of AI with the Terminator. Then we use something like Siri, and it's honestly kind of a letdown. And we wonder, you know, where is AI really, and how is that going to impact students and ourselves in the decades to come? We'll talk about some of the obvious things you see in the news a lot, self-driving cars. But we're going to talk about a few things that are more interesting, such as self-driving cargo ships and Uber and DoorDash and the self-driving food delivery systems that they're working on currently. And how are these tools and technologies going to change the jobs for students? What jobs are those going to erase? What jobs will they create? Why should students care about APIs? What is an API in programming? And what is the corollary of an API to a career with the gig economy? We'll talk about some of the ethics around that. What's ethical about the gig economy? What's not? In the next 20 years, I'm confident we're going to see more technological progress than we've seen in the last 50, especially in the realms of digital technology. So we're going to dig into a lot of this future of computing topics. And a lot of that conversation is going to be geared around what's going to be automated and what's not going to be automated. And how does that impact students, their future careers, their work in the economy? In a nutshell, everything is going to be self-driving, and it's probably going to happen a lot like cell phones did. There'll be a trickle at first, and then it's going to be a tidal wave. So cars, trucks, tractors, airplanes, cargo ships, even food delivery pods. Over the next few decades, it's all going to become self-driving. And that's going to have a profound impact upon humanity. We know that here at a high school and middle school level, we're not exactly teaching students to be programming these devices yet, but all of us need to be working on how do we build a mental framework for the tremendous changes that are on the roadmap ahead. We'll be talking about that white collar work automation. This might sound futuristic and sci-fi-esque, but it's really not. There are already artificial intelligence programs that can do lawyers' jobs better than they can. There was a recent test run where a app created by a group called Lawyer Geeks was able to review legal documents in about 2 minutes, where it took legal professionals 3 hours to review. And the AI system had a rate of over 95% success in identifying errors, where the legally trained professionals were able to catch about 75 to 80% of the errors. So we're already seeing where AI is doing a better job at reviewing legal documents and even reviewing medical scans for cancer and other maladies. So it's no longer the stuff of sci-fi books. It's actually happening, and the systems are starting to be rolled out. So talking with students around what does that look like? What does that look like when you've got one application that can do the work of thousands of doctors? You know, how are humans supporting AI, and how is AI supporting humans? Is the tail wagging the dog? And all of this is really culminating in what do humans do best? What is it we should be focused on with our skill sets to not fight against the technology and the tools that are being built, but to work with it and then accentuate what we as humans do best in the workplace? Because the future that we're headed towards is really one of John Henry and the steel machine. We can't outperform machines, but we shouldn't be trying to. There are other skills, specifically around soft skills, that we need to be perfecting ourselves, improving ourselves, and setting students up for success with, because everything is moving towards automation, even the jobs of developers. It doesn't mean everything will be done by AI, not by a long shot, but it's going to create a new level of sophistication in the workplace. So we'll dig into all that more in the coming PD sessions. We're going to dig into a number of those key digital literacy skills. And many of these sound basic. They are basic, but they're increasingly difficult for students to obtain in our distracted age. The ability to focus is one of the key aspects that is being lost each and every day. So we're going to dig into that some more. Adaptability. I used a new tool to build these slide decks. I didn't use Google Slides. I did not use PowerPoint. I used a new tool called Beautiful.ai, and it was fabulous. It helped me build these slides a lot faster than I have in the past. So students in the future are going to be running into the same scenarios that we are. There's going to be new tools coming out each and every year. You all are getting ready to learn about the new Live Oak computer science tool. So adaptability is huge for students. We'll talk more about that. The rise of the generalists, human aspects around well-being and self-control, and then soft skills and articulation. Just increasingly important skill sets in an ever digitized world. So we'll dig into those more once we've got a bit more time. I know we're running a wee bit over. So the next 3 PD sessions are going to be focused around ethics and computing in our modern world. The 3rd session will be economics and computing today and in tomorrow's workplace. The 4th and final PD session will be artificial intelligence and machine learning, and we'll be talking about human well-being as well. So these are the talking points on the PD sessions. In the background and offline, we'll have the project going, and we're excited to support you all with the project. Dane and I will be available for you all to email us if you have any questions or concerns while you're going through that Hello World project. And finally, so we can wrap up close to being on time, are there any questions before we wrap up our PD kickoff?
You said that was beautiful.ai?
Beautiful.ai. That's it, Batavia. It's a pretty cool system. I really enjoyed using it to make these slides. Last call for questions, and feel free to email us between PD sessions too. We are here supporting Henry County actively, and we are happy to set up one-on-ones as schedules permit. And we're looking forward to the next PD session. But if there are no further questions, here's what I'm going to be doing tonight, just for everybody. I'll be sending out the recording of this first PD kickoff. I'll be uploading that so everyone can access it. I'll send out these slides. And if everyone has been able to log in without issue, I'll assume that everyone's got the access, and we can actually take a look in Portal, and we'll be able to see who was able to log in successfully. And then I'll send out the survey link as well. But if there are no further questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up this PD kickoff. I've really enjoyed the time with everybody. Thank you all for the back and forth and the discussion. It's a big help for us as we continue to shift and shape the rest of the PD. I hope everyone has a fabulous evening, a good week, and our team will be looking forward to the second PD session a week from today, starting at 3:30, same time, same place.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
I'll take care.
Bye, Maxine. Bye, Batavia. Bye, Sarah. Bye, Dr. Walton.
Bye.
Have a great evening.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.